So, how are you guys?
Great.
I'm hot, personally, but otherwise good. Go ahead and pass this around. Oops. So, two topics today: LinkedIn and a little bit more detail on professional development plans. So that's our whole topic today. Then next week we'll talk about the case analysis paper and all of the overview of what I want you to do there. And then on Thursday we'll talk about the simulation. And then following that we'll start getting into the actual lectures on the rest of the material from the book. Sound good? Okay. So, there's a couple of different topics that I want to go over with respect to LinkedIn. One is just an illustration of just how powerful the tool is, which I'll go into in a second. After that, I feel really strongly that having a proper positioning statement at the beginning of your profile really makes it's more than half the battle. You know, each of you have a lot of different experiences from your different coursework, from work experience, from volunteer work maybe you've done in your lives, athletic activities. Those experiences can support a lot of different stories. If you want to portray yourself as a marketing professional, you set things up in a certain way at the beginning. If you want to portray yourself as a salesperson, you set things up in a slightly different way. Same thing for finance or banking, or if you wanted to get into the fashion industry, whatever. It's all about how you position yourself up front and how you describe yourself in summary as a professional. I'm going to talk a little bit as well about leveraging your educational product deliverables. A lot of times, at the point you guys are at in your careers, you've actually done more impressive work in your coursework and your homework than you actually do in your job. And you really want to get credit for the experience that you have, writing up reports, doing research, working with various database tools. There's a lot of stuff that you actually have done and accomplished in your courses that doesn't necessarily show up in your resume when you just talk about experience as a server or as a barista or even as a accounting clerk or something. It doesn't really reflect all of the skill sets that you've already demonstrated that you have during school. So I'm real big on having you articulate the things you've accomplished in your classes as if they were job accomplishments. Duties versus accomplishments, I'll talk about a little bit. There's a nice little article here that I've given you guys a link to on what does that mean, duties versus accomplishments. Most people in their resume talk about their duties. You know, I'm a professor. I'm responsible for teaching business strategy. I grade homework assignments. I help students with their professional development and networking. like, none of that actually describes what I've accomplished. It just describes what I do. And a lot of times, depending on what your job is, you don't really need to list off very much what your responsibilities are as accounting clerk. Everybody knows that accounting clerks go through a general ledger, they record entries, sometimes they do accounts payable work. You want to express what you've accomplished in concrete numeric terms. So rather than saying I teach students at a university level, it's more accurate to say I'm currently teaching 150 different students approximately, helping them with concrete multi-page LinkedIn profiles, coaching them in the development of a 25-page case analysis paper, identifying $50 million worth of potential new markets for X company. Like you want to put things in dollar terms, in time terms, and in number of things done terms, rather than just saying what the responsibility is. So that's that. And then the final point here, just the importance of polish and attention to detail. In our modern information age world, you generate text, you generate tweets and emails and documents really, really frequently and quickly, and it's inevitable that you have grammar errors, spelling errors, stuff like that. Even though I've sort of polished my profile over the course of years, I'll still periodically notice some small thing, a hyphen here that actually would be better if it was a comma. I'm constantly polishing and making the profile even better, and I encourage all of you to. I know it's tedious, but one spelling error, one paragraph that's sort of grammatically hard to get through tanks your credibility with people. And even though it's tedious to go through, and the fact that you misspelled word X does not properly reflect all of your value as a professional, it tends to have people not take you seriously. So you really want to make sure to focus on the polish. Moving on to the next slide here. Let me actually go out of the slides and into LinkedIn at this point. It's always whenever I pull it up on my laptop, it's always automatically put in there. And I think LinkedIn asked me to change it 6 months ago, and I can't remember what it was now. So bear with me for a second. There we go. Much better. So, if I click on profile here, this is what my profile looks like to me, when I'm editing it, and I want to kind of walk you through various elements of this. Some of you are more familiar with putting together a LinkedIn profile than others. So your basic contact information is up here. That's pretty straightforward. Down here, there's a bunch of different buttons you can push. Volunteering experience, volunteering opportunities. If you click on view more right there, it'll give you every type of content that you can put in. Organizations, patents that you eventually for those people who are engineers or chemists and involved in in sort of technically intensive work, they have a patent section. I have a publications section because that other half of what I do as a professor is be an author. So each of you have the opportunity to click on any of these that are relevant and add material to your profile. In particular, I want to point out it's not going to show up here for me because I've already done this in my profile. Once you have one certificate, it doesn't show up as a button up here at the top anymore. It actually shows up in the appropriate place in your profile. So if you want to add any more certificates after the first one, you have to scroll down to where those are in the profile. Does that make sense? So experience, when you first start, you'll actually have a button up at the top that says professional experience, work experience, something like that. That's where you go in and start adding all of your various experiences. Once you've added one, then you'll notice down here at the bottom, I can add another position. Same thing for languages. I can add more languages here. Education, as soon as you put in CSUB as your undergrad, then if you wanted to add your master's degree later, or if you went to BC first and then went to CSUB here afterwards, then as soon as you put in BC, then you'll also have to go down here to click on Add Education to add another school. Make sense? Scrolling down further, skills and endorsements. Basically, don't worry about that too much for now. It gives other people the ability to endorse the fact that you are good at strategy or public speaking or leadership or whatever else, and everybody else that's connected to you can go in and endorse the fact that you have skill sets in these areas. Honors and awards, same thing. Projects, this is what I want to draw your attention to. This is what you're going to do for this class, for example. When your case analysis paper that I want all you guys to do as part of this class, that's really it's I don't know how many pages it's going to turn out to be, but like 30 plus pages of detailed analysis on market sizing and competition, competitive analysis, financial analysis. It's really substantive stuff that you normally would be doing as like an entry-level financial analyst in a company, and you should get credit for doing it, even though you did it in this class. It's just as valid as a professional skill. So I want you to go in and describe the case that you did in this class as if it were a job. So in this case, you would add a project that looks something like this. You click on Add Project. It'll be case analysis paper. Business strategy. You can put management 4000, senior capstone, whatever you want to do. You're basically like, the main thing here is that you wrote a case analysis paper as part of this class. So then you can go in and attach this project to a job. You can attach it, in this case, to your education. So for me, my bachelor's was at Stanford, so if I'm doing the same thing that you guys are doing for your bachelor's here, you're just going to select CSUB and then attach this project to that. You can put a date on it. Basically, I just put for now, I put the start date of the quarter. So we'll put August of 2016. Eventually, once you finish the paper and you have, if you want to post that paper up in LinkedIn, you can actually put a link to your case paper so that people can go in and read and look at your work, and then just describe here, like I said before, as part of a 5-member team, developed a 30-plus page analysis of the firm Barbich Hooper King. If for example, if you accounting folks wanted to take that company as your focus, identified 500,000 in potential new small business. I mean, it all depends. When we go through the market sizing portion of the coursework here, you'll see I'm going to teach you guys how to basically, if you're looking at Barber Super King always, any company, no matter what company you're looking at, always wants to expand. They want to get more customers. So one of the things that I teach you in this class is how to go in and say, okay, well, we really could be doing more work with, small companies that support the petroleum business. So you go out and take a look at, okay, well, these companies are, between 10 and 25 people in size. They tend to have like $500,000 in, or they tend to have, 50 million in revenues or less. And, based on the penetration rate we have with our competition in other small business sectors, we could expect to get maybe 15% of the market. So we know that by going into the databases online, you can find out that there are approximately 2,000 businesses that fit that size in this industry in the state of California. If we assume that there are $50,000 in $50 million in annual revenue, then we know that other companies that we work for to do audit work, if we work for a $50 million company, it's usually a $200,000 price. So we're going to make average price $200,000 times 2,000 companies times 15% market penetration rate, and that'll come up with a dollar figure of $600 million or whatever potential sales that BHK could have in that market. So once you're done with the case analysis, you're going to want to cherry pick some of some of the impressive looking stats. So usually, whatever you come up with your market sizing is with new small businesses in the oil sector. Also, you're going to do a financial analysis. You're going to do some best practices work. You're going to do an analysis of Porter's Five Forces. There's a lot of different stuff. So you might also identify, did a one-page overview analysis of Porter's Five Forces, identifying the importance of low barriers to entry in this marketplace. Period. Like, you're just going to cherry pick some stuff that looks impressive, put it in that description, and then when you're done, we'll just take out also for now. You just click Save, and you'll notice here that's in the projects. And if I go up to Education, you'll notice there's a little project attached to that now. That's the case paper that I just put in. So it'll say CSUB, it'll talk about the years that you were there, and then they'll have a bunch of little bullet points down here where you can read the projects that you did as part of your education. Does that make sense? So I am going to delete this because that actually was not something I did at Stanford. Remove this project. So on and so forth. So let me point out a couple other things here about coursework. So that's one description of your case paper. A lot of the classes that you take as an undergrad, you basically have a test that you took, or a midterm. It's not always a case paper like in this class. But just because that's the case doesn't mean you can't basically describe your homework as if it were a job responsibility. So if in this class, you're going to take a final exam, and you could describe that in here as, just put in the project name would be business strategy. Oh, that's the URL. Project name would be business strategy. Let's call it something like business strategy key concepts demonstration. That's actually what you're doing when you take a test in any class, is you're demonstrating your knowledge of key concepts. But rather than calling it a test, call it key concepts demonstration. And then down here, you're going to say something like, participated in a 1-hour review exam of key business strategy concepts such as Porter's 5 forces, external analysis. You can just list off the topics that we cover in this class, and then achieved a score of 93% out of 100. Period. Save. It sounds more like a work responsibility rather than a homework project, but it actually better reflects your skills as a business professional than greeted approximately 20 customers per day waiting tables at X company. It sounds better to talk about the key concepts that you've demonstrated 90% plus capability with. So just a different way of expressing things in your profile here. So that is that. Publications, not really important right now. Courses, let me point your attention to this too. In addition to your you're just putting down your degree and connecting sort of the highlight projects. So I think you take something like, 40 classes over the course of your undergrad degree, more or less, ballpark. You might only list 10 projects that were kind of the highlights that you're really proud of, but you're going to want to list all of the courses that you took, because you never know, somebody might be impressed that you actually it might be some kind of networking talking point that you took Introduction to Philosophy, So here under courses, again, for the first one that you add, there's going to be a button up at the top that you click Add Courses. Once you've done that, all other courses you add them here, and just type in, this is Intro to Philosophy. I don't know, philosophy 110. I don't know what the number is, but you can put down the course number, and then again, just select CSUB to attach that class to. Okay? So that's the basics of adding material. Let me point out down here at the bottom, depending on what industry you're interested in working in, if you were interested in working in banking and finance, you'll want to join groups that are about banking and finance. So if you just go to, you just go up here and search banking. You'll see here jobs, people, groups about banking. So just click that groups about banking. And banking careers, bank jobs, retail banking, these are all good things for you to join if you're interested in being in a career in the banking industry. So just click on join, and those will show up at the bottom of your profile. And your name will show up as one of the members of this group. You'll get newsletters and emails about things going on in the banking industry. It helps you with networking considerably. So you'll want to go in and join whatever groups seem relevant. You can also join BPA, which we have a LinkedIn page on BPA that you can follow. You can join Cal State Alumni Association as a group, et cetera, et cetera. It's not just industry things, but I think the industry groups are some of the ones that are most valuable for your networking in the future. So that's that. When I talked about here, let me go back to one more thing. If we go back to profile again, I kind of skipped over it at first, but this is my personal summary section of my profile. So, international business development scholar, educator, and consultant with 20 plus years of experience. Like, in a nutshell, for my current career, like I'm an expert in business strategy and entrepreneurship, and I do consulting and I teach. Like, that is a efficient summary. If I were to change my career direction and go back into the music business, I wouldn't put that down. I'd probably put down, international music licensing and business development expert with 20 years of experience on 3 continents. I would change it slightly so the statement that people hear about me is that I'm a music industry expert, not a professor. In this case, where I'm at in my career, this is an effective way to summarize myself as a professional. You want to do the same thing. So if you want to go into marketing, you want to go into the fashion industry, present yourself as a, hang on one second, and as an aspiring, you are a management professional with 5 years of project-based experience, and basically any of you who have done projects during your university years have at least 4 years for your degree of project-based experience. Even if you didn't actually work in a job, you're doing projects at this university as if it were a job. So I would start by saying, marketing professional, fashion professional, banking, finance professional, accounting professional, whatever it is that you want to, if you want to be sort of a general management person, but you want to be in a certain industry, you might say management professional with approximately 5 years of project-based experience, interested in building a career in the fashion industry. And then you could put a few key accomplishments. I tend to, in my summary here, summarize the fact that I've I've worked on major business development projects on 3 continents. All the details are down in my profile, but long story short, I have experience with major projects that built a lot of business development value, and they happened on 3 different continents. That's kind of the summary of me as an international business professional. Make sense? What was your question now?
Okay, I was going to start by saying I'm a human resources major.
Yep.
But before that, I was actually doing performances and shows. So now when I do my resume, and I kind of put that in the past, like I put it in my resume, I've kind of been told like to leave it alone, it's not relevant to what I'm doing now. So kind of like put it on the side. But to me, it's kind of like it's still part of my.
Yeah. So what did you do with performances?
I used to do show singing and stuff like that.
Say again.
Singing.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So we used to do grand openings for celebrities. So it's like it's part of my, what I did in my experience. Have a different way of looking at things, and definitely keep skills. But yet indeed, I'm constantly being told to put that away on my resume.
I wouldn't. I'd phrase it differently though. Like, did you actually get paid for it? Was that your job for a while?
Yeah.
Okay. So, how about I'd put it down as a job, but I'd also put. You didn't just sing. You had. There's a leadership element to being able to cooperate with other people. There's an organizational element of running shows and being on time and being organized. I would play up the skill sets that are, managed professional delivery of singing performances in approximately 3 shows per week. Put a number with it, but talk more about the professional skills that are relevant rather than the artistic skills, which are interesting but are less relevant for telling your professional story. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, because I also have experience while I was working my last job and being JCPenney. So they're like, just put the other one away and just talk about JCPenney.
There's different philosophies on it. You can put it away, but honestly, I don't put away the fact. If you scroll down on my profile here, I basically, I was a sales manager for my dad's IT company for a while. Honestly, that has very little to do anymore with what I do as a professor, but it still kind of is because it was a small business and it's relevant. The first business that I started, my first licensing business, this Avenue 2 here. Avenue 2 was almost like a hobby. I ran it. I threw my heart and soul into it, but it really didn't make a lot of money. And I could have just left that out entirely and talk about what I've done in management consulting and other things, but it's part of the bigger story of who I am as a professional, so I leave it in there. But you can go either way. I personally think if you're proud of it and there are skill sets, certainly, if nothing else, if you were in that job for a year, 2, 3 years, that shows like consistency and dependability and being in one job for a certain amount of time, and that at least is relevant even if the job was singing. Make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions before I go on? Okay, now that I've talked about the summary a little bit, I love doing the illustration here of how powerful a tool this is. Could somebody tell me the name of a company you'd like to find a contact at?
Marriott.
Huh?
Marriott.
Marriott? Like the hotel company?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I type in Marriott there, you'll see here the company, jobs, and people that are somehow have the name Marriott in their profile. And to the right-hand side of their names, you'll see here it says second, third, first. That's the number of degrees of separation I have from that person. Does that make sense? And the same thing will show up for you. What is your name?
Anish.
Anish. So Anish, if you're connected to me, which you are, I think I just clicked the accept earlier today. If you go in and type in Marriott, Michael Malouf here will show up as a second degree connection for you because he's my direct connection and you're connected to him through me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my third degree connections won't show up for you because it stops at third degree. But if I have a second degree connection to, okay, so this is actually the event manager at the Kingsgate Marriott, which is one of the main hotels right next to the University of Cincinnati where I did my PhD. She's the event manager there. And I don't actually know her personally, but I know these 7 people. Hang on. I know these 7 people. There's only the first 3 shown, but Brittany Warvason is basically a former student of mine from University of Cincinnati. Carmen Arroyo, I can't remember how I know Carmen. But you'll see here, this lists all 7 that I know that are in common with that contact at the Marriott. So if you were looking at that, you would see Courtney DeGeorge, CTA, and it would say third next to it for you. And it wouldn't actually show who I'm connected to that knows her. It'll show you know Jeremy, and Jeremy knows 7 other people that could introduce you to Courtney. Does that make sense? So all you do is just, if that was a contact you wanted to talk to, you just go and send me a message and say, hey, Jeremy, could you introduce me to Courtney? And if I can, I will. If I can't, I won't. But that's how it works. And it's I'm blown away. You'll notice here, there's actually 298,000 results for Marriott. If we just put people on the left-hand side here, that's still almost 290. If I can just choose first-degree connections. There's actually 3 people that I am directly related, linked to, that at some point. So we're in the past. Brittany actually worked as a night manager at Marriott. That's probably how she knows the event manager. If I look at second-degree connections, there's 2,000 people that I know who know someone at Marriott. That means that each of you, that means you, Anish, when you go in and type this in, you'll have 2,000 third-degree connections. It won't actually say, unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't currently give you the opportunity to sift or sort just on third-degree connections, but anytime you see the letter third, or the little word third there, it means that there's a connection, and you will have 2,000 of those that show up for you because I have 2,000 second-degree connections. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. It's really. Anybody? Does somebody want to give me another name? Marriott's pretty easy. Give me a rather obscure company. Yes.
Lockheed Martin.
That's also very easy. But.
Or Genentech.
Genentech. Genentech.
Genentech.
How's that? Okay, so Pam Doolin, industrial hygienist there. Secondary connection for me, et cetera, et cetera. We just go to the secondary connections. 284. That I know someone that foundation specialist, Jessica Dallowell. I can't remember how I know Jessica. No, actually, I don't know Jessica, but I know Kirk. Kirk is a networking contact of mine that knows a lot of people. So there tend to be 10 or 20 people that I'm connected with that I met at one time or another who are connected to the entire freaking world, and they'll show up again and again and again like that they know people. Make sense? So this is what is so exciting about LinkedIn to me. And as soon as you're linked into LinkedIn, if somebody is searching for, somebody's searching for, someone in Kern County with marketing experience, if they put that search term in, you'll show up on their search. And even if people aren't looking for you, it's an amazingly powerful networking tool for you to be able to find contacts at different companies. It's just unbelievable. I've started using it to, like, whenever I have like a student project in my my entrepreneurship class or my small business class, and I find out, oh, you know what, we need to find a contact who has experience with C++, like programming projects. I just type in C++, and it'll show me the people I know who actually have C++ programming experience, and then I can find one of them that I know particularly well and that I know for a fact has some extra time, and I can ask them to give my students some advice on managing C++ projects. It's a really amazing tool. So this is why I start every class with making sure that each and every one of you are connected to me, because that gives you access to all of my network, and it helps you to start building your own. Make sense? Any questions about that before I move on to part 2 of the lecture for today? Okay. Actually, before I move on to part 2, there's something I wanted to show you guys last time and I forgot. There's a section of the content part of the Blackboard here that says CC materials. The Career Center is a little bit more on top of things and proactive this year than they were in previous years, and the director of the Career Center sent me these earlier this week and wanted me to make sure that everybody is aware of various events going on. So this is the list for their walk-in hours, and you can basically go in and get advice on your resume, get advice on networking and interviews with various companies. This is their entire schedule of events. There's a career expo and a volunteer fair that are particularly big events they're doing. These are separate flyers for those. And then there's a resume clinic I think they're doing next Monday. So that's all in here. All you got to do is go to Blackboard, to the content section, and go to CC materials. I highly recommend that you use as much of those resources as possible. They're all very, very good for your professional networking. Okay, moving on to part 2 of the lecture here, your professional development plan. Let me actually go quick and see whether there was something else that I wanted to go over with LinkedIn. I think I've covered everything in the slideshow. Yeah, positioning statement. Educational deliverables we talked about, duties and accomplishments. So just quickly here, like I said before, this is a profile from one of my students from a couple of years ago, and assistant manager, Big 5 sporting goods. Responsibilities include opening and closing the store. Not once in there is there a number about like how many work schedules, how many employees did he manage, what was the value of the weekly shipments. I mean, there's usually an inventory value of $100,000 worth of products. You want to put the value of that, not just the fact that you did it. So this is from my profile. You can go in and look at it sometime just by going to my LinkedIn. This is the job that I did for a little over a year as a headhunter in Los Angeles. So I usually put one sentence, very short. I was an account executive responsible for XYZ. I do mention something about my duties, but very briefly. And then I always have a sentence that says, deliverable, accomplish, and include the following. And I just put bullet points of what I think the most impressive things were. And that job can be summarized into the fact that I brought in about $100,000 of profit for them. I was really good at setting meetings with new customers. I just was fearless with that. So there was over 300 initial project meetings that I had in 1 year. And then there's one project that we did that was particularly successful, and I summarized that one because we made about $50,000 for the client. It was a 2-to-1 return on investment for them, and it created a lot of potential revenue for future work that we didn't book before I left, but the opportunity to have access to that $1 million worth of add-on work is something I generated. So those are kind of the 3 accomplishments, and I want you guys to do similar description of your own accomplishments in that concrete kind of way. Yeah, polishing and attention to detail before and after we talked about it, so that's good there. Moving on to professional development plan. So, you all saw this in the template that I sent you and had you fill out. Most of you have filled it out at this point, the professional development plan. There's the whole point to me of like what I can do to help you in this class is I need to know, what do you do today? You know, how are you today, both financially, and what are you doing professionally, and where do you want to go in the future? Like short term, in terms of what is your job going to be when you graduate, and then, like I said, long term, what do you want to be when you grow up? Basically, what's your dream job? What are your big dreams? I mean, you can't achieve dreams if you don't actually document them, identify what the steps are to achieving them, and then do the steps. There's a thing I go to at the end a little bit about the rule of 10. In a lot of ways, I'm an incorrigible former sales guy. Like everything about the way I think about the world is influenced by the fact that I used to be a salesman. And if you want something to work out in life, you need 10 irons in the fire. For every one job that you get that you really like and is the right salary and is the right hours and everything, you need to have applied for 10 other ones that were the exact same salary and hours that you didn't get, in order to ensure that statistically you just have enough things going on that something's going to work out. I'm a huge fan. Whatever you want to do with your job, with your finances, with your networking, with anything, whatever the goal is, you need 10 ways that it can happen, and then you're pretty assured of success. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. The mid-range goals, let me actually go on beyond this and talk about brainstorming for a second. Some of you gave me more concrete answers to the midterm goals than others. If you haven't completed it yet, or you want to sort of go in and edit it, what I really there's a number of things that you can usually do as your next step professionally, especially when you're doing a degree and then after furthering your education, moving to some next step in your career. You can either earn more money in your current job, you can move to a new job in the same company you're in. So there's a lot of people that have a junior position, and after they get their education, they move up to a more senior position with better pay. You can find a new job in the same industry. So you might be working with a wonderful company, but after graduation, you end up working for Bolthouse instead. It's still within the agriculture sector, but you may have had an opportunity to go to a higher level position. It's in the same industry, but it's a different company. Sometimes, Noah, where are you? That's what I thought. So what are you doing right now? Professionally, I can't remember.
I have a photo booth company.
Okay.
And I substitute teach, and I teach dance, and I'm getting my real estate license.
Cool. So currently, depending on which part of that you wanted to emphasize, you're a teacher or you're an insurance agent. What you'd like to do, ideally, is be in the fashion business. So sometimes you're moving from teaching or insurance to fashion. It's a radically different change to a new job and a new industry. Grad school is an option, obviously, for a lot of people. That's a legitimate next step. You know, I'm finishing my undergrad and I'm going to do the MBA program next year. And the next thing, or the last one on the list here, I really shortchanged myself when I was an undergrad and sometimes as an MBA with internships, volunteer opportunities, and hobby projects. Like for you, Noah, the best way to get into the fashion business is to not require that people pay you for it first. Like if you volunteer to help out with something, you help to organize some shows, you get your foot in the door, and eventually, as an example of what I should have done in my MBA, and I don't really regret it because I like the job I have now and I like the way my life has developed, but the internship that I had between first and second year when I did my MBA was at a company called Artist Direct. And I got paid like $5 an hour, which was not a lot, but at least it was something because most of the rest of the internships there, it's a music internet company, so they didn't pay anybody. Everybody was there, was just glad to be able to be there. And if I had been willing to work for free, I could have worked in the agency side rather than on like new internet projects. I would have worked for free. I would have shadowed the agents for the Beastie Boys, for Marilyn Manson, for Blink-182. I mean, they were major names in the business, and I could have gotten to know those bands and their managers and various people backstage. I wouldn't have gotten paid, but I'd probably be an agent at William Morris now if I had done that, rather than a professor at CSUB, which I like doing, you know. But it's hard to become an agent at someplace like CAA or William Morris or whatever. My boss, like the overall owner of the company, who I didn't interact with much because I wasn't willing to work for him for free, his name's Mark Geiger, and I think each year Variety brings out a list of like the 100 most powerful people in Hollywood. Mark's at like number 31 or something. He's the head of the entire music division of William Morris. Like Artist Direct ended up not working out as a company. A lot of internet companies in Internet 1.0 in the early 2000s did not work out. So he went back to William Morris after it didn't work out, and he's the head of the music division of William. I mean, William Morris is a huge talent agency that manages some of the biggest stars in the business, and I could have been his sidekick if I'd just been willing to work for free. So I encourage all of you, depending on where you want to go with your career, don't poo-poo volunteer opportunities. Don't poo-poo internships, because they can get your foot in the door for something that otherwise you're never going to be able to get into if you insist on being paid the way you would in a normal job. So those can all be legitimate next steps for where you want to go after this class, basically, in your profile there, or the plan that I had you submit to me. I want to talk a second about like realistic like income goals, and like another thing that I was never very good at in life is being practical and realistic about how much money I needed to make. I constantly chose careers and jobs that didn't pay enough because it'll work out somehow. And you know, I have so much passion for the music business. The fact that I'm earning $20,000 a year less than what I need, it's okay. It's just so cool. I'll figure it out. No, I won't figure it out. I'll keep going more and more into debt. That's what happens. So I just put this list in here for your guys' benefit. If you have not planned on taxes and withholding, saving about 20% for your own retirement, rainy day funds, you know, honestly, there's very few things that I've done right financially the last year. I've been kind of gluttonous in spending my new like 6-figure professor salary. But one thing I did do was tell my financial advisor, like, dude, just go in and take $500 a month out of my account and put it into money markets. Like, you never know when, like, basically, you never know when your Rebel cruiser is going to be like overtaken by an Imperial Star Destroyer, and you have to you have to put the plans with the droids and jettison them to Tatooine. Like, you never know when you have to get out of Dodge fast. So I encourage all of you, if you don't have a rainy day plan, if you don't have some cash that you can access to bridge a couple of months, you may lose a job and end up working for years in crappy jobs because you had to do it in order to pay the bills because you didn't have money to bridge a couple of months. So I highly recommend putting away some rainy day funds. Just, you never know when the Empire is going to overtake your Star Destroyer, or overtake your cruiser, you know. Healthcare, I mean, a lot of people sort of short. I actually have been pretty bad at not planning enough what my deductibles and co-pays are each year. I'm always surprised, like, what the hell? I have great insurance. What, $500? Well, I forgot. Like, each year, the first 500's on me, and depending on what kind of health services I use, 10% of whatever wasn't covered by the insurance is also on me, and I just don't plan on it. I just you have to. You don't plan on it. The money's not just going to like grow off of a tree. Rent, utilities, car payments, telecom, and I've put a lot of different things in there under telecom. Food, entertainment, and question mark. Like, everybody has something that's important to them that not necessarily on everybody's budget, but I highly encourage you to write out what all these things should cost. And if you're not targeting a job after graduation that's going to pay you more than what that list adds up to, you are going to be unhappy. Like, so think ahead about what you realistically need to spend. Job searching, briefly. How many people in here are familiar with using RunnerLink? Good, good. More than used to be. For those of you who aren't, I have a link here. Just click on it. It'll take you to RunnerLink. I'm going to click here because I enter through a different portal since I'm a professor, but it'll look exactly the same. There we go. There we go. So just want to point your attention to a few things in here for those of you who aren't very familiar with this. And for those of you who are, you might want to pay attention anyway because there may be some things you didn't realize are in here. So you can do a bunch of things to sort of beef up your profile. The more like robust it is, the more chances that there are that employers and other people come and find you. But the most interesting thing here is the employer directory and job search. If you click on employer directory here, if you want to know like all of the companies that we have contacts with in some way or another in our career center that are in the accounting business, just click on accounting and search. You'll see that there's 40 different accounting firms that we have some kind of contact to: Barbara Cooper King, Brown Armstrong, etc., etc., etc. If you want to find contacts at that company, the basic contact information is here. You can also call our career center or email them and say, "Hey, I noticed that we have Barbara Cooper King in our recruiter database. Who do I talk to there?" And they can also put you in touch with the right person. Just FYI, if you go in and you don't click any of these industries and you click search, it will give you every single company that is in our database. There's what, 1,852. You can also, of course, narrow it down by industry if you're just looking for aerospace companies or agriculture companies or advertising, whatever. Good way to like expand your network, even if they're not actively hiring on campus. You can ask the Career Center who's the contact there, and then you can start talking with them directly. Job search, same thing. This is actually all the jobs that are actively being recruited for at our Career Center. So if you want to see the accounting, like if you want to see the aerospace jobs, for example, you can just click on that. So there's only one right now, and it's an internship with Southwest. However, if you, again, don't click anything, crap, here. You don't click on anything and click search. That'll give you a list of every job that's currently being hired for, and right now there are 315 companies that are actively looking to hire somebody from Cal State. So you can go in and look at each and every one of these job descriptions, etc., etc. Make sense? Okay, cool. You've also got an events section here, which describes all kinds of different career fairs and stuff that are going on. Useful to find out. So Nestle's having an information section. You can get information on what events are coming up that you can just go to for networking purposes. Very good resource, and not everybody at Cal State uses RunnerLink as much as they should. There's a lot of good information in there. So that's what it looks like. You've got a link here to that, in case you can't find it yourself. Just click on this link here, and it'll bring you to where you need to go. I also recommend social media job postings. You noticed before when we were in LinkedIn, if we go back to LinkedIn, and I just type advertising. Does anybody in here wanted to go to the advertising industry? So advertising. See jobs requiring advertising skills? There are 273,000 advertising jobs being recruited for right now on LinkedIn. Like apparel, so Ducati, motorcycle people, apparel, business management for them. That'll give you all the information for the listing. LinkedIn is a great place to go find job listings too, not just the Career Center. In addition to that, Monster, there's all kinds of job boards out there that hire as well. The thing I would warn you about with Monster or anything else is that, like, you're going to be like one among thousands and thousands and thousands of resumes. Go to use the information on Monster, do everything they ask you to do, fill out the form, but then go to LinkedIn, figure out who you know is a contact at that company, and make sure to contact them so they know that you've applied. Otherwise, your materials tend to get lost in the shuffle. But Monster, all those things are great for knowing what is actually being hired for. It's just not sufficient to get you the job if you just apply and you don't follow up with contacts. Yes, Anish?
I actually have this app called Jobber. It's kind of like it's like kind of like Tinder for jobs.
Yep.
And like I got a couple of like pretty good responses back.
Cool.
I think they connected with like Monster as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's new apps, new like ways to find job opportunities all the time. I hadn't heard of that one yet, so everybody in here, is an app for your phone or for your?
Yeah, for your.
Yeah, so anybody in here, I also recommend now, based on Anisha's comment, go to the App Store, download Jobber.
Jobber.
And then last 2 points here before we go on to the next slide. You can actually just identify a specific network building target. So if you know that you want to work for Sephora, for example, just go straight to LinkedIn and find somebody that somebody that has a contact at Sephora and start talking to them. Even if they're not hiring for something right now, just ask them, when are they hiring for something? What would you need to do? What kind of things do you have to put on your resume in order to be an attractive candidate for them in the future? And then finally, prospecting for networking leads. Let me say generally that although you don't want to get bogged down in too much networking with people that are completely off target for your career or your industry. Be relatively open-minded, because you never know where a new contact may lead to. And I recommend that the more people in your network, the better, all things being equal. How many people have heard of the book What Color Is Your Parachute? It's still a great book. It's actually from another generation ago, but they bring out a new edition of it each year. I put the 2016 version in there. You can go to, there's a link to Amazon if you want to go get it. It's like $5 or something. It's pretty cheap to get the book. It gives you all these exercises, all these like things to go through to think about for basically what's your dream job? What do you want to be when you grow up? So if you don't know exactly, there's a lot of things I could do. I don't really know what like my most happy career in life would be. Use this book, fill it out. I highly recommend it. basically, I did this 25 years ago when I graduated from Stanford, and it said I should be a professor. I didn't listen. I had to like go make my mark in the world and try and start my own business and everything. But basically, the book told me 20 years ago that I would love being a professor, and I do. This is the best freaking job in the world I could imagine. So if you don't know exactly, or you're open-minded, you think you know what you want to do, but you're just open-minded to see if if that's confirmed or not, I really recommend it. It's outside the scope of this class, but it's a great book for figuring out what you want to be when you grow up, basically. So that's that. Planning big dream income. Basically, for the long term, it's a bit beyond the scope of this class, but one of the reasons that I put in the professional development plan, how much money do you want to make long term, is because if you want to achieve something big financially, you need to actually like take steps and plan to get there, or it's never going to happen. So, as an example for myself, I have about a $10,000 annual travel budget because I lived for about 5 years in Brazil. My ex-wife is Brazilian. I lived for about 5 years in Germany. I have friends all over the world. No matter where I live, there's someplace else that I wish I were, So for me, having $10,000 in my travel budget, and really about $20,000 for going out to bars, going out to restaurants, just enjoying my social life, that's something that's important to me. And if I didn't plan ahead, like that wouldn't just be in my budget. But some other things that I think are relevant to a lot of people in here, and I just wanted to kind of point out what it means. A lot of, I think, people in here want to buy a house. Some people already have. You need about 5 or 10% down to buy a house. So, housing prices are relatively good in Bakersfield. So, the $200,000 house, you're going to need about 10 to 20 grand to put down, and that's not hard. If you save $500 a month, the same thing that I've been doing with my rainy day fund, about 2 years, you've got $10,000 set aside that you could use for the house. It doesn't take that long, but if you don't plan on setting that $500 aside a month, it's not gonna just grow out of the ground because you poured like green colored water on the ground and want money to grow. Taking care of your parents when they're old, that's something I'm dealing with a lot right now with my dad. If you don't plan on having if you don't plan on having a certain amount of money available to take, he's probably like he's like a second line item on my budget each month, like $1,000 extra in my life, just dealing with helping my dad. Being a millionaire, which is sort of a common goal that a lot of people like to say they'd like to get to, it's actually not that hard. I did the numbers one time. If you put away like $20,000 a year, more or less, for 25 years with the compounded interest, you'll basically be a millionaire. It's not hard. It's not easy. I mean, putting away $20,000 a year is a lot, but if you start now at the beginning of your life and your career, that will turn into $1 million by the time you retire, basically. And one of my personal favorites, because I like to travel a lot, is owning a Learjet. And originally, when I put this together as an illustration for the class, I thought it was going to be like going from cheapest to most expensive, buying a house, taking care of your parents, being a millionaire, owning a Learjet. Actually, it's way easier to be a millionaire than own a Learjet. a Learjet costs, like $50 million to own it, but you can rent. There's times, anybody heard of NetJets? Yeah, there's timeshares on Learjets, but even to have a timeshare on a Learjet, you basically have to put $500,000 down. That's your like ante to get into the game, and then you got to pay about $200,000 a year to keep your space reserved on the plane. So it's doable, but if you want to have access to a Learjet 20 years from now, you need to plan on saving up $500,000, and you need to make sure that you have, basically, you need to have an annual income that's in the $500,000 range. Otherwise, there's no way that there's going to be 200 of that you could set aside for your damn jet. So there are jobs in this world that pay $500,000 a year, but you need to find out what they are, and you need to make a plan for how you're going to get from where you are now to that $500,000 a year salary 10 years, 20 years from now. Make sense? But I highly encourage you all to dream big and count what does it take to get there, and then make it happen. General network building. There's one thing at the bottom here that I want to kind of point your attention to. It's relatively easy to find contacts with LinkedIn and everything these days. You need to keep in mind what's in it for the other person. Like, sometimes it's just the opportunity. I'm amazed with how many people I know that I went to school with or whatever who will guest lecture for free in my classes and give advice to you guys just because all day long they sit around in a boring desk doing boring work and nobody appreciates them. And they just like to have an opportunity to talk to you and hear you be excited about their career, because normally they don't have a lot of excitement. Sometimes they may need contact here or there, so you want to be perceptive of what it is that the other person gets out of the relationship. It might be simply that they like to help, but be conscious of what that is. And then finally, this is my little pitch on the rule of 10 again, and then we're done for the day. There's about 7 billion people on the planet. It's probably going to be 10 billion before too long, I mean, there's always someone out there who wants whatever it is that you have to offer, whether it's professionally or you're selling something, you're trying to build a new entrepreneurial idea. There's always somebody out there that can help you, or that it could be your customer or whatever. The problem is how to weather the process of finding them. And like I said, it's in anything in life to be successful, you need to try 10 times. It could be 9, could be 7, could be 15, but on average, if you have 10 different opportunities to make something happen, one of them will work out. And just realize that has to be the case. The wonderful thing about social media, Google, all kinds of databases that we have access to here at Cal State, you can find out a lot about a person or about a company before you ever talk to them. There's no substitute for talking to them, but you don't have to ask somebody, how many employees does your company have? You can actually ask them something value added, because the information on how many employees the company has you can find by yourself already. Asking them something like, what is your biggest concern for this business a year from now? That is not listed anywhere online, but simple information like the number of employees or the revenues and so forth, you can find out a lot just by doing your homework beforehand. And then 2 last things, especially when it comes to networking, document everything. Document everything. No piece of information is too small. There's a guy who now does guest lectures for me regularly. He is one of the partners of the largest PR firm in Indianapolis. They do a lot of work for the Colts and stuff. I first targeted him as a customer for my second company, and I called and he wasn't there, and his assistant said he's usually out on Tuesdays, but he's usually here in the morning on Thursdays. Well, that could just be blowing me off, but I wrote it down anyway. Okay, don't call Tuesdays, try Thursday morning. I did. I called back. He was there on Thursday morning. We talked, and now he's a really good contact of mine. So even information like the voicemail says, "Hey, I'm busy, but please try and email me." Like, if it says email me, then do it. Even if you have to follow up 10 times in a row, don't poo-poo simple information. Or if they say they're out on vacation, call back in 2 weeks, and if you actually find the person, ask them how their vacation was. It's a good conversation starter, and it helps you start building relationships. And then finally, don't take rejection personally. It's just an omnipresent part of the process. If you want to be successful and build something that doesn't exist today, you're going to have to try hard, and you like the fact that one thing that you tried 10 times for one thing to work out means that the other 9 didn't work out. But don't take it personally. Those 9 were just there to get you to number 10. So that's my spiel today on professional development and LinkedIn. I need the sign-up sheet back, and I think what I'm going to do for groups, I have almost everyone's professional development plans now. There's still a couple that I don't have. I'm going to email the whole group, and I'm going to write down, like, okay, based on what everybody said, here's the 5 people that are interested in banking, here's the 10 people that are interested in marketing and in accounting. I'm going to list everything off and make a suggestion for what the group should be. There's one group that already got to me. I put your names down already. I'm going to send an email to everyone suggesting what the group should be, and then we can confirm those next Tuesday. Sound okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Yep. That's okay. Did you put your name at the bottom? Put your email on there too, and I'll make sure to add you.
Is this up to date? Because mine, I turned it into yesterday, so I wasn't sure. Does it say okay next time? Quite yet?
When did you send it?
Last night.
Oh, yeah. Say again? Uh-huh. Yeah.
And as far as the can you choose our own, is that
Well, what I wanted to do is have people that have similar career interests work together, because you're going to be doing research in a certain company. And if you're interested in marketing, I don't want you working on a company that's like in the banking business, because it's not really in your career interest. But that being said, as soon as I do know people that are interested in XYZ, you're welcome to. Somebody, like there's one group that four of the 5 of them are interested in accounting. One of them's not, but the 5th one was like, okay, that's fine. I'll do my research on accounting because I want to be in the group with you guys.
Okay.
Make sense?
All right. Yeah.
Let me send that around, and if you want to request back to me.
All right. And the logos that we have to do. I'm not sure if I missed it or not. Did you give up the registration?
No, we'll do that next week.
Okay.
We'll do that next week.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
How are we doing, Bruce? I want to let you know, I will be not late next week. After this, I will be on the 7th of September. I will be absent because I have surgery. I will do it on the 6th. Okay. Wednesday, I can attend it on Tuesday. I want to let you know earlier because this day I will be absent. The 8th. There's any problem because I have surgery.
No. Just make sure you talk to your group members about what I had to say about Globus, but it's okay if you're not here.
Yeah, okay. Just I want to let you know.
No problem.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me know. Okay. Hey,
I want to ask you about the 3 exams.
by the way, I added you.
Yeah,
We're good.
I just want to tell you that I wrote my name in the roster in the bottom, but the
Yeah, but you're up here now too.
oh really? Because I didn't sign here. Just I wrote my name.
No, that's fine. Thought I did. Thought I added you.
I didn't see it. Maybe it's another Khalid.
That's fine. That's fine. ALH.
AMDAN.
Can you put your email address too?
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, I'm asking about the 3 exams. It's going to be from the book.
Yeah, it's basically material from the book.
So, and then it's going to be short.
I think I'm just going to do multiple choice, but I haven't decided yet.
Okay. So, did there any like exercise activities we have to do with?
No. Like, there'll be a writing assignment that you have to do that you have to put together, write a cover letter basically.
And then
There'll
this.
be a second writing assignment later in the semester. I haven't decided what it's going to be yet, and then you have those 3 exams. But
So this
otherwise, there's no
one,
exercises.
Okay, thank you.
Make sense?
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
no problem.
Hi.
See ya.
First, can you sign for this paper?
Yes.
Thanks.
Did you put your name on the list yet?
No.
Make sure to write your name down and your email address there.
You sign it, then
Yeah, I will. Just if you don't write your name on there, then I'll forget to add you to the email
No,
list.
I'm done.
Thank you. Who's next?
Just
Okay.
one thing.
Yeah,
No,
go
no, go ahead.
The personal knowledge development, is it due next Sunday midnight or?
Like the
That's something.
LinkedIn profile?
Yeah.
Just do it as soon as you can. Like,
Alright.
basically, the sooner you do it, the sooner I can go through and say, hey, I think you should add this and change this. Like,
All right.
it doesn't have to be perfect. Just
Okay.
just do whatever you can and link to me.
Thank you so
Okay?
much.
No problem.
The second and third week of September,
Uh-huh.
I'm not gonna be here.
Okay.
My dad is getting surgery the third week
Uh-huh.
in Downey, California.
Uh-huh.
In treatment.
In Downey?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he has cancer, so I'm gonna be with him.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay. And then the second week I'm gonna be in Oklahoma. It just
Okay.
lined up that way.
What are you missing? I can't remember what is on the calendar for those days.
I'm not sure. I'm just clearing.
Yeah,
up. I'm
that's
gonna
fine.
email you
Let me look here quick and just make sure that there's nothing important that you're missing.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
No problem. And you put your name there at the bottom with your
Yeah,
email?
let us know.
This is you?
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
thank you so
No
much.
problem.
So what about the first class? I didn't write my name.
What's that?
The first class 2 days ago, I didn't write my name in the sheet.
Oh,
So that's fine. For
Were you
attendance?
here on Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was here.
I'll add it.
Thanks.
Cool.
I have to give this in the admission, right?
Yeah.
Have a good weekend.
You too? You too? Okay, let's see here. You said second and third week of September? Mm-hmm. Which, so that's the 13th and the 20th?
No, let me make sure. It's the 5th and 12th, these weeks, school weeks.
That's fine.
Is there anything-
You'll have to, no, you have to coordinate with your group members to make sure that you, like, give your input on the simulation decisions. And email me your cover letter writing assignment, basically, but
Okay.
it's okay.
That's fine.
If
Okay.
you're here.
I will. I'll email you again to remind you.
Cool,
Thank
thanks.
I don't know if my class got canceled or what.
I don't know.
It's so
You might be 10 minutes early.
Yeah, I think you're right, too. In the 2:30?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Bars.
You said Monday you were looking for a webcam. I recently just bought I bought multiple cameras and stuff for a Raspberry Pi.
Uh-huh.
Do you want this?
Uh,
You could try. I haven't tried it.
I
but
have
it'd
one
be
here. I
worth
mean,
trying out.
I've been using it, but I mean, if you don't want it, I'll save your extra webcam. I'm sure I'll
Yeah,
use
sure.
it eventually. Thanks.
Sure thing.
Okay.